All right, YouTube, it's time to return for politics because you've probably seen the Colorado primary wasn't really an actual primary. What ended up happening, they talked about this a year ago, and I guess some people either forgot about it, didn't care, or thought they wouldn't go through with it or something. There was no actual voting in the state of Colorado. Now, when I say I'm cynical about the two-party system, I'm cynical about mainstream politics, a lot of times people that are more partisan, they sort of brush it off. They ignore it. They're like, yeah, well, there might be some shifty shit going around here. Something odd might go on over here. But ultimately, it's a democratic process. I say no, it's really not. The two-party system is a little more than a corporation. We saw two things in 24 hours. Wyoming for the Democrats, Colorado for the Republicans. It's gotten to the point where it's so crooked Trump is almost praising Bernie Sanders on this topic. Sanders wins Wyoming, and yet ends up, once again, magically getting fewer delegates than Hillary Clinton. This has happened several times. It doesn't make sense. You have idiots like Nate Silver, who at this point, with his shitty predictions, his algorithms based on lack of a paradigm shift, you might as well say, well, they don't even matter at all. His aggregates and totals and mathematical functions that he spent so long designing no longer really apply to these races, especially with the polls plus forecast. That's been even worse than his regular forecast. The regular forecast at least is on par with like Sabato or something like that, or Krauthammer, and even they were discounting the outsiders. You look at Wyoming, and it's happened time and time again. Sanders goes in, the Democrats institute a superdelegate structure by which an outsider who is getting now more of the popular vote, who is winning state after state, yet another state, gets fewer delegates than somebody who obviously is not particularly popular with the bulk of those voting among the Democratic electorate, among those that are registered as Democrats. You have Trump, who has continuously won state after state. Yes, he lost the state of Utah in the Utah-Arizona matchup. He won Arizona. He lost Utah. He went on to lose Wisconsin. Here in Colorado, though, there's not even a vote being held. They just say, oh, well, the delegates are unpledged. They end up all magically going to Cruz, I guess, except for a couple that are still unpledged. It's like, what the fuck is going on? Now, nothing that the RNC or any Republican insiders could possibly do is more beneficial to Donald Trump than to actually do exactly what he has been saying all along is going to be done on a miniature scale. He's saying the RNC, if he fails to reach the threshold, is going to steal the nomination from him. So he's using that as a rallying call for his supporters. Get out and vote, because otherwise, if we don't win this outright, it gets stolen from us. They then create a microcosm of the entire fucking argument that Donald Trump has made now for months, which is RNC corrupt, steals elections, not really a democratic process. And they create a microcosm of that within Colorado, and they actually strip the democratic process down to a literal, straight-up oligarchy by which these delegates are just magically choosing Cruz, even if it's within. And here's the point. Here's an important point that really needs to be made. They didn't do anything specifically that breaks the rules of the party. The fundamental problem is that the party itself is corrupt, and the ability of a state to do this sort of thing is exactly part of the same situation that people like Trump on the Republican side, and to a lesser extent, I would say Sanders on the Democratic side, have really talked about. Sanders has mentioned this a few times now. It's obvious that he's getting pissed off with this as well. I think he might have actually been naive enough to think he had a chance, even in the face of all the superdelegate bullshit that the Democratic Party's done, because he seems to have honestly gotten angry. Now, a Vermonter can tell when Bernie Sanders is getting actually hot under the collar, as opposed to just, he's posturing, or, he's pretending to be incensed or something. He's actually getting literally mad over this. I wouldn't be surprised if he unleashes unholy fury on Hillary Clinton. It'd be about time, by the way. He's held back long enough. Trump, on the other hand, he's never pulled any punches on the Republican side. People are starting to notice how strange it is that all of these wacky rules got instituted. Now, the Republican Party, you got to understand. Well, first to Ted Cruz. I should probably point that out. Back in March, when it was, his campaign was dying down and it looked pretty fucking bleak for Ted Cruz. Oh, only at the ballot box can we defeat Trump. There should be no brokered convention. You need to unite behind me, Ted Cruz, save my campaign so that I can make more money, by the way. And we will defeat Donald Trump. When it became clear that that wasn't actually going to happen, that any unity of the anti-Trump vote behind Cruz was meaningless, and at most would help him win a few more states, a place like Wisconsin, admittedly not expected by that margin. But is it going to help him in New York State? I would think not. It looks like it hasn't helped. At Pennsylvania, Trump's almost 30 points ahead there now, too. They've got arcane rules as well. After Pennsylvania, New York will go roughly as expected. New York primary, Trump's like, 30, 35 points ahead. He's not going to have any competition. It's his home state. He's going to pull in probably 1 million votes in New York City alone. He doesn't have a problem there. Going forward to the 26th, though, you've got arcane rule in the state with the most delegates there, which is Pennsylvania. You have the same sort of weird arcane rules. The people of Pennsylvania won't be voting for a candidate. They'll be voting for a delegate. Unless they know which delegate actually represents which candidate, they're screwed. You could have any possible outcome. Kasich could win every delegate in the state just by chance alone at that point. People are going to look at that. They're going to be saying, what the fuck is going on here? Now, I expect Trump will win on April 26th. I expect him to win New York. I've already said that. It's almost unthinkable that he wouldn't. I expect him to have certainly the highest number of popular votes in Pennsylvania, assuming people actually understand the voting process there. The problem is, primary voters are more politically literate than general election voters. A lot of general election voters, they just check the name with the right letter next to it, let's face it. They don't even know a third party exists. They don't know anything about the Senate. They don't know the names of anyone on the Supreme Court. They're fucking morons for the most part. People that are participating, that slim minority that participates in a primary or caucus, they're more politically literate, but they're still going to have trouble with this. They're probably a lot of these voters are going to go in expecting to see on the ballot. They're going to expect to see Trump, Cruz, if they know he exists, Kasich, if they've got a Republican ballot in the state of Pennsylvania. They're not going to see that. You can't understand why that would be a little bit of a problem. And so any possible result could happen. Now, I expect Trump will probably win. Connecticut and Rhode Island, I would think certainly. He's got those. Connecticut's basically a suburb of New York. Rhode Island is, it's heavily weighted towards Trump in those states. Maryland, same thing. There is a little bit of the Dixieland aspect, even though it's a northern state. There's a little bit of that, the nativism that would help Trump, the baptism, the Baptist sort of stuff. Delaware, Trump and Kasich, I guess, have an advantage there. And in Pennsylvania, Trump's like 20 points ahead, but it doesn't even fucking mean anything if people aren't voting on an easily understood ballot. And then you have states like Colorado that don't even hold a vote at all. There was no voting. They canceled the primary of the state of Colorado. I mean, it's ridiculous that they would do this and think that this is actually going to help the candidate that they chose. Clearly, the establishment Republicans, despite their original reservations, have gotten behind Cruz. What better way could we help him than to justify everything Trump has said and make Cruz look like an establishment insider? Can you not see how this will backfire? Yes, he gets a couple dozen delegates from the state of Colorado, but going forward, it just makes him look more like a stooge. Now, here's a candidate who he worked for George W. Bush as an advisor. Neil Bush is on his campaign team. People that he squarely classed as establishment are jumping aboard his campaign. He has the most insider endorsements. He has the most corporate donations. His wife was a chair at Goldman Sachs. She's off the chairmanship now, but she was a chair at Goldman Sachs while he got $1 million loan from Goldman Sachs. He's getting funded and backed by the same sort of people you would expect to be on board with somebody like Hillary Clinton. Well, you can't get much more establishment than that, and yet at every possible turn, here's Cruz ranting about how he's not part of this same group. And it's really funny because he says that he wants to beat Trump one-on-one. He wants to beat him in actual delegates. He wants to go into the convention with 1237, be the nominee, or win at a brokered convention where he's, roughly even with Trump or a little bit ahead or whatever. And yet when something like this happens, where clearly the process that he himself openly touts as the way he wants to beat Donald Trump, when that process is scrapped in favor of not even bothering to have a fucking vote, and the delegates just jump on board the cruise missile, you know, his cruise missile cock or whatever. He doesn't say anything. Trump calls him out and says, well, you should argue for an actual vote in this state. It's kind of too late now, but Trump comes out and says that, and Cruz, of course, says, well, the rules are the rules, Donald. Well, you know, that's not what you were saying a month ago. A month ago, you were saying that sort of shenanigans was a bad thing. You wanted to beat him one-on-one. I guess now Cruz realizes mathematically after New York and after the 26th, he can no longer reach 1237. If Trump doesn't reach that threshold, it will be a brokered convention. Now, what the Colorado Republicans have just shown me is the GOP might actually be suicidal enough to go into a brokered convention where Trump is leading, you know, by 200-300 delegates, and rob him of the nomination. What fucking chaos would that cause? Because then not only the Republican candidate, which would by default be Cruz, he's not going to win. Cruz is not, I hate to say this to folks, I've said it before, I'll say it again, Ted Cruz is not capable of waging a general election fight. It's impossible. There's no chance on earth that he could possibly win. The Republicans would be handing it to Hillary Clinton. Ultimately, people would rather have yes, we know Hillary Clinton's a liar. We know she's corrupt, but a lot of people, they'll vote for her anyway. They'll vote for her. They honestly, a lot of them probably see her as more trustworthy than Ted Cruz, which is about as bad as you can possibly fucking get. Trump may very well run an independent campaign and end up fucking sodomizing the Republican Party out of half of their votes. Meanwhile, again, you've got Gary Johnson in there at double digits. You've got the possibility of Bernie Sanders potentially running independently. Bernie Sanders was an independent for most of his career. He only switched to the Democratic Party in order to get funding from oddly enough, the same group that was fucking him up the ass. I don't quite understand it. Now you have these shenanigans in two different states, again raising the specter of Sanders and Trump, who are more well-liked than the front-runners of the establishment. Hillary Clinton is not a popular front-runner. Bernie Sanders is about even with her in popularity. Ted Cruz's unfavorability rating now is skyrocketing because he's taking a hammering. His unfavorability rate, by the way, I believe, I could be wrong here, but this is a prediction, is rising because some of his fans, not a lot of them, but some of them are beginning to realize, he brands himself as an outsider. Yet again, he has the Goldman Sachs money, Bush advisor, all of these other things. He's quite clearly not what he says he is. He's quite clearly lying to us. They don't really appreciate that when they see that he's gobbling up 20 whatever is it delegates in Colorado without a vote actually being cast. It starts to confuse people. See, they were under the illusion that the two-party system was a democratic system. It's not. These are corporations that get money from donors and that can screw around with the voting within their parties at a whim. Why even bother participating in the primary process if it's that crooked? See, the third party would be a better option ultimately for this country. In the general election, you got to realize these same donors control that same media that holds like the debate schedules and stuff. In fact, it's really a conflict of interest that you have all of these debates sponsored by the same media that's in bed with the same corporations and sometimes the same fucking thing, and in bed with the banks that are bankrolling these two parties that screw with their own systems so much. Only the fact that people have not quite woken up to this fact is the reason they even tolerate the two-party system. Now, I'm outside of it. I support Gary Johnson. I'll be voting for him. Trump and Sanders, whether you agree with them or not, are quite clearly standing up to that system within their parties. I haven't heard either of them say anything substantial beyond Citizens United is a bad idea, but that's a perennial thing that Obama said the same thing. He hasn't lifted a finger to stop it. Citizens United is a bad thing. As far as general elections go, they haven't really said much, though. That's, again, why I say the style of reform of these candidates. Sanders wants to screw my wallet, but he is a reformist. Trump wants reform. I can respect that. I just think it's too little too late. I think our electoral system alone is so screwed up. It will take a monumental effort to actually achieve the kind of reform you need to have a fair election. The fact that the party systems operate the way that they do is so fucking screwed up. It's to the point where people who are diehard partisans are now thinking about leaving their own parties. Specifically because for the first time, last election it wasn't quite so it was harder. It was more obscure. It was more difficult to see the corruption last time around. And the time before that, like 2008, pre-social media, as far as, you know, there was no Twitter. Facebook was still relatively new. YouTube was in its infancy still. It was only half a decade old. All of these sort of instantaneous transferences of information that have allowed people to mass message others in various formats and inform thousands, tens of thousands, sometimes millions of people about how crooked these things are. A lot of that infrastructure online didn't exist. Now, if you watched mainstream television in 2008, if you watched Fox News, you knew that John McCain was the savior of the white race in the Republican Party, and Obama was Hitler. And if you watched MSNBC, you knew that Obama was the upstanding dude who was going to undo all of the damage of George W. Bush, and that John McCain wanted to cause an atomic war with Iran. That's what you knew if you watched TV news. Because it fucking sucks. Nobody cares about TV news anymore. People go to the internet for their information increasingly. Good. Kudos to you if you do that. You're getting... As long as you're looking in the right places, you're getting more fair information. You can aggregate it from all sorts of different sources, get all sorts of different opinions, and then dig for the facts yourself if you have the intelligence to do that. But now it's very difficult for the parties to really justify all these shenanigans because now they're on public display. It happens, and within a few hours, or like the next day, tens of millions of people know about it. And then they start shitposting all over the media articles where the media is talking about why it's actually okay, there's nothing wrong here. Don't worry about the fact that Ted Cruz got 20-something delegates without a single vote being cast. Don't worry about the fact that Bernie Sanders got, you know, robbed of half a dozen delegates in a state that he won handily. Don't worry about all these things. Oh, the system works just fine. Focus on the other side. See, if you look, Breitbart or something, they'll say, oh yeah, well, the RNC's screwy, there's something fucking wrong there, yeah, we don't like it either, but look at the Democrats, they're so much worse, you know, we really got to beat Hillary, we got to get behind Cruz at this point. You look at MSNBC, you look at Maddow or something, they'll say, yeah, the DNC might not be acting kind of fairly, but yeah, Bernie Sanders got a little bit of a raw deal, but oh God, look at Trump. He's just such a racist. So just ignore it for now and go attack the Republicans. It doesn't really work anymore. People are starting to wake up to the fact that they're both so screwy. There's really not that much of a difference between them. That's why I say jump to a third party. Yeah, you should vote for the outsiders in the primaries. If you're a Democrat, you should be voting for Sanders. Don't vote for Hillary Clinton. Why would you want to vote for Hillary Clinton? She's just such a fucking dumbass. Why would you want to vote for fucking Ted Cruz? I strongly believe the Wisconsin vote may have been rigged, by the way. That margin, I don't know if that's quite reality there. You look at what happened in Colorado. Someone was saying some of the delegates like marked their vote twice and they got counted or something. I can't confirm that, but maybe somebody else can link me. I mean, it's just so why would you want to vote for somebody that has to take advantage of such a situation where there's not even a democratic vote being held to actually potentially stay in and be viable as a candidate? Why would you want that person to lead a nation that still possesses thousands of nuclear weapons, that has trillions of dollars in GDP, that has hundreds of millions of people in population? I would think that'd be kind of an important issue. I don't think I would want to hedge my bets on somebody who can't even win a fucking fairly simple, straightforward primary process without having to rely upon the Bush family and the Koch brothers and Karl Rove and idiots like that. I don't think I would want to do that, nor, by the way, would I want to vote for Hillary. You know, a dynastic Clinton, fucking blue-blooded idiot whose husband screwed with the judicial system so badly it almost never recovered, and we're still suffering from the effects of it now. Doubled down on the drug war. I find it funny. There are people voting for Hillary who they're like, oh, end the drug war, and you're voting for Hillary Clinton? What the you must be smoking drugs at that point. If that's your kind of logic, you must be a total fucking retard. So yeah, Colorado and Wyoming, collectively, between the two of them, they show us, yeah, the RNC and the DNC are rigging the primary system. Legally, you can't do anything about it. All you can do is, yeah, vote for the outsider or don't bother voting for either of them. Vote for third party or something like that. Just start railing for the libertarians. Or if you're a leftist, go for the Green Party. They're further left than Bernie Sanders will ever be. Actually, I think they want to steal a little bit less of my money too, so it makes me feel a little bit better about myself. They're not actual socialists or whatever. I mean, come on, can't you see that this is fucked up? Why do you think that I ultimately abandoned the two-party system? It wasn't just the fact that Obama was Bush light. it wasn't just the fact that, yeah, Clinton was a liar. People voted Bush in. Bush was obviously a liar. They voted Obama in. Obama's a liar. Now they're going to vote somebody else in who will probably lie as well and has probably been lying for months and months and months. It's not even so much that. The process is so fucking stupid. It's so obviously rigged that it's almost difficult to get people convinced that it is being rigged, even if the evidence is literally right there, as clear as crystal, right in front of their faces. The lie is so big that they actually believe it. It's sort of a Hitler-esque thing. You make a lie so big that people will believe it, and many people do. Or they're ambivalent. They don't even care that it's rigged. They're like, yeah, I don't care if the RNC rigs the election because any of them are better than the Democrats. Well, that's fucking retarded. Or, oh, yeah, I don't care if they're trying to keep Bernie out and coronate Hillary Clinton because, oh, look at how bad Trump or Cruz are. They're all bad. That's the fucking point. And many people don't seem to understand this. So yeah, Colorado and Wyoming have showed us just how bad the situation really is. Citizens United does need to go. There should be no union, lobby, corporate, bank donations, certainly no foreign donations. There should be a simple one person, one donation capped at some arbitrary level. That's all the money that should be in politics. There should be no public funding for political parties. There should be no significant limitation on the parties participating in the debates. There should be a constitutional amendment guaranteeing that. The primary process needs to be overhauled. It's clear that parties are no longer capable of responsibly handling this system. At the very least, you need something to keep the media accountable to allow smaller parties to actually compete. Because otherwise, what's the point of having political parties? The Democrats and Republicans are the same fucking thing. So yeah, that's about all. Peace out.